Can you hear us, Brian?
Hello? Hello?
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Is that you, Brian?
Yes.
Michael Kuritz?
He's on mute. Oh, Julia.
I'm here.
Rick Dean?
Here.
Julia Turner?
Here.
Ruth Novosad?
Here.
Jim Finnegan? Here. Drake Zimmerman?
Here.
I think we're all here so we can conduct business tonight. I guess the court, Phil has something he wants to say first.
If the case heard tonight is finished and the ZBA has discussed it and voted on it, the case will be considered complete. If a case is not finished, or if the go-to meeting system crashes, or the ZBA members are not able to adequately communicate before a vote is taken on a case by the ZBA, the case will be continued until 8 p.m. on Wednesday, June 9, 2021. Please contact the Department of Building and Zoning at 309-888-5160 for a link to this meeting or attend the meeting here in person. The ZBA bylaws allow the chair to impose time limits on opening, closing, or other statements or questions or any portion of the proceedings. Time limits for testimony of interested parties or objectors is limited to 10 minutes for laypersons and 30 minutes for experts. The chair will limit questioning of witnesses to one series of questions per person per witness. A copy of the rules and procedures of the ZBA can be found on the website at the Department of Building and Zoning or here on the table by the door. A note for those watching via YouTube live stream: the YouTube stream is not an interactive medium. Any comments on the YouTube live stream are not monitored and will not be addressed in the meeting. If you are attending remotely, please mute your phone or computers and turn your cameras off unless you are on the ZBA or you are approved to speak. Samantha Vasquez, Assistant State's Attorney, has something to add.
Thank you. Welcome back. I just wanted to make a little reminder about decorum during the hearing. The chair will have discretion to limit an individual's participation if decorum is not followed. And I just wanted to remind everyone so that we can have a fair and speedy hearing process. Statements will not be allowed during the question period, and questions will not be allowed during the time for statements. So thank you for your cooperation.
Okay, everybody was sworn in the other night, so we're not going to go through that again. And I guess if you get somebody that we missed when they bring them up, a new person, let us know. But I think you can go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I believe we left off with Ms. Blank being questioned by any remaining interested parties. I know a number of interested parties had asked her questions. I don't think we concluded that segment of the hearing.
I think you're right. So would any interested parties have questions of this witness at this time? No.
This is Tim Jolly. Can you
Ms.
hear me?
Blank.
It was on the shadow flicker. I think you asked
This
the
is
question.
Tim Jolly.
before
Can you hear me?
closed.
Chair, my notes have the last person to pipe up last time was Phil Reynolds, and we didn't get to him. I'm not sure if he's present, but that's the person I had first on my list for today on this part of the procedure.
Tim Jolly is also wanting to say something.
Okay.
This
We'll go ahead
is
and- We'll go ahead and
Phil
take Mr.
Rouse,
Jolly.
not Phil Reynolds. But,
Phil Reynolds. Are you there, Phil Reynolds?
yeah, it's Phil Rouse, Rous, not Reynolds. But yes, I was asking a question at the end of the meeting about the shadow flicker expert. The question was related to the shadow flicker studies were done in relation to non-participating households. I was wondering if there was any shadow flicker information related to the roads, as there were, major roadways running through the area, and drivers would be subjected to the shadow flicker.
The shadow flicker study doesn't put points along the road. However, part of the assessment exports contours that does show how long and where shadow flicker falls on roads.
And from those contours, what was the maximum impact? Was there any more than for the houses? I know it was less than 30 hours. Were the roads the same?
There isn't a specific count because there aren't points. So you would have to look at the contours on the map to see how many hours of shadow flicker would fall on a specific point on a road. And that map can be found in the shadow study that is part of the application.
And the contours stop at like 30, right? Greater than 30. So the roads were within the greater than 30 area. Is that correct? Am I reading the study correctly?
The contours are in 5-hour increments, and I believe they go up to 55 or 60 hours and down to about 15 hours.
Okay, so I'll try once more. If the maximum exposure you timed and your contour was 50 hours, are there portions of the roadway, say US 160, 136, that are in that contour of greater than the maximum, whatever it was, 50 or 60 hours?
I just was handed a copy of the figure, and I'm looking at 136, and that does not fall within 30 or more shadow hours annually, nor does Highway 150. But there certainly would be specific smaller roads that may fall within the 30-hour contour.
Thank you.
Mr. Roush, for the record, could you give your full name and your address, please, for the court reporter?
Yeah, my name is James Philip Rouse. The farm I have is the northwest quadrant of Section 5 of West Township, and I live in Peoria, Illinois.
Could you give your Peoria address, please?
9318 North Picture Ridge, Peoria, Illinois.
Thank you.
Did you have any other questions? I evidently not. He turned his mic off.
No, I'm sorry. That was, yes, thank you for your answers.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Mr. Jolly, I have a question.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. Can you hear me first of all, okay?
Here you, but you need to just do your name and address for the record.
Okay, Tim Jolly, Rural Route 1, Chenal, 2700 North Road. Okay,
I think we got it.
okay, thank you. One is a little bit on procedure, just real quick. first out, I visited with Mr. Dick earlier this week and was unable to hear any of the testimony or anything that was going on in the McLean County boardroom. Is there going to be a possibility of asking questions of people that were giving testimony? I've been able to review some of what Mr. Dick had referred me to on a connection that I could listen to, but I still didn't get very much information out of that. Am I going to be able to ask questions of people that have testified?
That would be up to the chair. We have been operating under the procedure that once a witness has been presented, everyone who wants to ask a question asks the question at that point in time. There will be an opportunity for the applicant to present rebuttal evidence if they so choose, at which time questioning will reopen after that.
Okay, and during the rebuttal, will, I guess the only way I could call it is opposing people be able to call someone as a witness that was a witness before to be able to question them on certain things?
There will be a time for interested parties or objectors to present their own witnesses. So if that is the case and you want to recall a witness during that time, that would be considered your time to present evidence.
Okay, that makes sense, just so they're available to be able to answer questions we have at that time. Pertaining to this here with the flicker issue and things, I believe Ms. Blank made comments about the flicker on the actual properties, and most of them were done on, I believe, participating residents. Did you encompass everybody participating and non-participating to see how much flicker at each resident?
Yes, we did both participating and non-participating on all residents within approximately 1.3 miles of the turbines.
Okay, and that 1 point would be the residents, is that correct?
Yes.
Has there been, and it's kind of similar to being on the road or whatever, but since people have acreage and are out in the field working and things like that, is there anything that is over 30 hours while they're out working in their property? Has there been anything studied for that?
Similar to the answer to the roads, if you look at the map of the contours, you could see whether a point on land, not a specific receptor, but the land would fall within the contours.
And do you know of any of those being over 30 hours?
Yes, I'm sure there are. Yes.
Okay. Something else was alluded to as far as possibly being able to shut down a turbine. And if there's an instance where it's really bothering somebody or they have issues, day after day, is there a way to shut down the turbine? I think Mr. Griffith alluded to something you can't tell if it is, but is there a way to handle a complaint in case somebody is having issues at the moment that they would be able to call somebody and have something shut down at the moment?
Mr. Chairman, I think that's a question that's better posed for Mr. Vanderkamp as the applicant as far as complaints and how those would be dealt with for the project. Ms. Blank wouldn't have that knowledge.
Is it okay?
Well, I was
if we
thinking you
answer
represented
it
them,
then,
Mr.
or-
Griffin. You had answered that.
Yeah, Mr. Vanderkamp can answer the question. I just think it's more appropriate for him to answer than to
Okay.
ask Ms. Blank to do it.
Okay. That's all for now. Thank you.
You can go ahead and answer if you want. I mean,
Sure, we will have an O&M building, an operations and maintenance building located on site which is going to be staffed. If there is a landowner with significant concerns or questions, we'd be happy to answer those questions and deal directly with that specific landowner.
And how will you inform people in the area, either participants or non-participants, of how to get a hold of that number?
I'm aware of, so there's two townships in this area. There is a publication out of the town of Bellflower. We could certainly advertise in the Bellflower Bulletin. And also we could also send out a mailing to the area. We'd be happy to do either of those things.
Are you involved with the Blooming Grove project that's currently operating?
We were happy to answer that question through Mr. Vanderkamp, but I think the question should focus on Shadow Flicker and Ms. Blank.
Well, it does. It has everything to do with Shadow Flicker and the Blooming Grove aspect as well, to show some kind of history or aspect to what may be going on.
I think we better stick to the subject tonight, though.
I'm just trying to show a history of how they've handled things in the past.
You'll have a chance to do that if you want to give testimony later.
Okay, I just thought it was there for questions.
Any other questions? I think you've already asked questions to this witness, haven't you? Okay, come ahead.
I just wanted to clarify one thing. I had given an answer to Mr. Jolly about questioning witnesses, but I'm not sure if what I was saying was clear. The objectors or interested parties will have an opportunity to present testimony and witnesses of their own at a later time. And I don't know if that was clear, as opposed to going back and re-questioning witnesses of the applicant that are not their own witnesses. So thank you.
On my part, that is clear. However, due to the circumstances that there was absolutely no communications online the other night, I thought that it would only be fair that we'd be able to handle this while it's fresh and they were giving testimony. So I understand what you're saying, and we can take care of that.
Ed Peterson, 31630 East 500 North Road, Arrowsmith, Illinois. I am confused on how she can provide
Mr.
data.
Peterson, if I could, my notes show that Mr. Peterson asked questions last week at the meeting and concluded his questions.
If you did, that's the rule tonight. I mean, if you've already asked questions of the witness, we're only going to do one round.
Not to this witness, I did not.
I don't have a record, so.
I have the order of questioners as Caroline Taylor, Ed Peterson, Phil Rouse, and Tim Jolly. I have Ed Peterson as number 2.
I was thinking you were the last one that asked questions the other night, but I'm not going to say one way or another, but.
Can I make a statement where
No,
I had
no,
tried to
just
get
question.
information? Where can I achieve a map of signed up properties? Bellflower office does not have one, will not be complete until mid-summer.
The project application for the SUP has a map of all of the participating properties. So right there, like Mr. Dean's got that application there, and that's posted online. You can look at the map, and it'll highlight in green, right, the participating properties.
It is incorrect.
Thank you. The time for statements will be at a later time.
I think I got one right here. It's got everything in it. I got an extra.
The reason I know it's incorrect, they have my property signed up and it
Excuse
is
me.
not signed up.
Excuse me. We will have an opportunity for statements at a later time. Thank you.
You can have my information there. I've got it in the book, but.
Verify what you're saying there. We'll move on, right?
Yeah, we're going to have to move on. Sorry. You're going to be here. If you get another question, you come back. Any other questions of this witness? I don't see any, so I think we can move on.
Mr. Chairman, I do have some brief redirect questions for Ms. Blank based upon some of the questions that the zoning board had asked her.
Okay.
I promise we'll be brief. Ms. Blank, in the current turbine array that is shown in the application, which shows all the locations of the turbines, did you participate in the design of the location of those turbines?
Yes, I did.
And why were you involved in that?
My role was to assess the shadow flicker and to help to site the turbines to minimize the shadow flicker and keep it under 30 annual hours on the receptors.
And did that require you to work on a number of iterations or different turbine layouts in order to achieve a model with a 30-hour annual limit on non-participating residences?
Yeah, it certainly did. We did about 15 different iterations, and although
Hang on just a minute. We're going to have to cut the talk over here because we had a witness talking, so. And you're going to have to move back to your seat, Mr. Peterson. Thank you.
although the layout that is currently proposed has 89 turbines, there actually were more than that were considered. There were different locations that were actually eliminated during the assessment of the shadow flicker.
And have you assisted with the design of turbine arrays relating to shadow flicker for other wind energy projects?
I certainly have. I've done them all across the United States. Although my focus is on the Midwest, I have done a lot of them in Illinois, Michigan, Wisconsin, Iowa, but I've also done some in New York, West Virginia, Wyoming.
And in your experience, what is the annual limit that is used by these other jurisdictions to control shadow flicker?
So there are some jurisdictions that don't have shadow limits at all, but the ones that I have dealt with, it is predominantly 30 hours per year.
And that's been across the United States?
Yes, it has.
That's all the questions I have for Ms. Blank.
Okay. Can we move on, Kevin? We can move on to the next witness.
I would say based on that new testimony, if there are any questions from the board or staff or interested parties.
Okay, we can ask, does anyone on the board have questions of the redirect or the testimony tonight?
Not me.
Phil? Any interested parties have questions of the testimony tonight? I think you're okay. Thank you.
If you're ready for our next witness, Mr. Chairman, it's going to be Dr. David Loomis.
Well, thank you very much. It's great to be here in my home county. My name is David Loomis, 2705 Colby Court in Bloomington. And the purpose of my testimony is to talk about the economic impacts and the property tax revenue that would come from the Sapphire Sky wind farm. Next slide. Many of you know me. I'm a professor of economics at Illinois State University. I helped co-found the Center for Renewable Energy at the university and helped establish a sustainable and renewable energy major at the university. I have over 10 years of experience in renewable energy, done research, academic research, as well as consulting research on the economic impacts of renewable energy. Next slide, and next. I'm going to show you some of the results of the model. The model that I used in these estimations were the JEDI model. Somebody liked Star Wars when they were naming these with the acronym. Jobs and Economic Development Impacts. It's developed by one of the Department of Energy's national labs, the one particularly focused on renewable energy. And it's based on IMPLAN, which is economic development software. The multipliers that I use are the latest multipliers coming out of that. It would be something that would be used for any economic development project. The Bloomington Normal Economic Development Council, for example, uses IMPLAN in their modeling of economic impacts. Next slide. So when we're looking at economic impacts, we're looking at the initial capital expenditures and then the ongoing operations expenditures as input into this process. And then we divide those into kind of three buckets there in the middle. The local expenditures, in this case, we're looking at local as being McLean County, the middle being the state expenditures or state of Illinois, and then the bottom would be non-regional expenditures. And depending on the model, whether we're doing the county or the state, we're going to take those expenditures appropriate to each one, and then it's going to be subject to a multiplier effect, so that as those injection of investment and new dollars flowing in from the wind project, we look at, say, how much does that investment reverberate, recirculate throughout the local economy, and what's the total impact of that. The bottom one is the economic leakage. Leakage are dollars that flow outside of either the county or the state, and therefore there's no economic multiplier that pertains to that one. Next slide. So when we look at results, we're really looking at three effects. The first one is the on-site labor and professional services. Those we're going to label the direct effects. The second would be the equipment production and supply chain. Those would be the indirect effects. And then jobs that are created in those first two effects would create what we call an induced effect. As people have more jobs, more income to spend, they're going to spend that in the local area, and those capture those household purchases because of the additional income. Next slide, and next. So we look in particular at the benefits for Sapphire Sky. I'll just focus on the McLean County results here. We see 191 jobs created or supported during construction. That are those direct effects. That would be the project development and the on-site labor impacts. Those would be largely composed of construction workers that are going to be on site, but it's not totally made up of those workers. The second would be the supply chain impacts. We were not assuming that the turbines are manufactured, obviously, here in McLean County. So those are a leakage, but there's a lot of the indirect effects that do come, purchases of concrete rebar for foundations that just make economic sense to source those locally because the transportation costs are so high relative to the costs of the goods and services. They're almost always sourced locally. And then finally, that induced impacts of 55 jobs are jobs that are created due to household purchases. Those would be things in grocery stores, restaurants, movie theaters, and so forth, from people having more income to spend, for a total of 379 jobs created or supported in McLean County. The operations impacts are smaller, but these, whereas the construction impacts are one-time impacts, the operations impacts are ongoing for the life of the project. We estimate 8 on-site labor impacts. Those would be wind turbine technicians and maybe a site supervisor associated with that. And then the local revenue and supply chain impacts, an additional 13, 15 induced impacts for a total of 36 long-term jobs created or supported. Next slide. So when we look at total earnings, these, I won't go through all of these, but all that to say is these are good paying jobs, especially on those, the direct and indirect jobs. The induced jobs are not as high paying because, as we said, they're typically at grocery stores, restaurants, retail, because those are household, where we spend our household purchases in the local area. But the other jobs are higher wage jobs for the local economy. Next slide. Finally, when we look at total output is a measure like gross domestic product, but here for the county, so it's be the gross county product. It's the value of goods and services that are produced in the county, and also a sizable impact in terms of the total output for McLean County. Next slide. And next. So when we look at property tax methodology, Illinois has passed a state law that determines the assessed value of a utility scale wind turbine. It's based on the number of megawatts of capacity, so this is going to be not vary depending on number of turbines, as long as the total project size is the same. It's going to yield the same in terms of property taxes. According to the law, it was $360,000 per megawatt, but it's adjusted annually for inflation, and once the project gets built, then it is depreciated at 4% a year until it reaches a maximum depreciation of 70% depreciation, or 30% of the original assessed value. All the tax rates in my analysis assumed that it was a constant tax rate at the current tax rates that we had at the time that I did this study, and remained there through the expected 30-year life of the project. Next slide. Rather than have a slide full of numbers that you wouldn't be able to read, the full table is in the report, but you can see for McLean County, the county fund would be expected to get $7.5 million over the expected 30-year life of the project. It does, as we said, depreciates. It hits a low point, and then it starts rising again once you hit that 70% depreciation value. You see, again, about over $3 million for West Township, $3.6 million for Bellflower Township, listed there. Next slide. But obviously, with the biggest tax rate being for school districts in any jurisdiction here in Illinois, the biggest benefactor of the wind farm would be the school districts. In this case, Blue Ridge School District would be expected to get almost $35.8 million over the life of the project, and nearly $8 million for Leroy Community School District. Next slide. So there was a question that came up last week because in the report it listed Parkland Community College as being a receiver of the tax revenue. And so I wanted to just highlight this. If you look here at the, on the left-hand side is Heartland Community College. This is off of their website. You kind of see in the southeast corner of McLean County a bite taken out of McLean County. And maybe it's clear on the right-hand side as Parkland Community College. You can see up in the kind of northeast corner there, Parkland has the southeast corner of McLean County. These are from their websites. That's what we're collecting. Interesting anecdote, the Illinois Community College Board actually has proposed legislation to the state to mark out the exact boundaries of community colleges in the state. So there is no single source of boundaries for community colleges, but this project is safely within the Parkland Community College boundaries. Next slide. So in conclusion, according to our modeling, we're looking at 379 local jobs here in McLean County. During construction, again, those are one-time jobs during the life of the project. Those jobs are full-time equivalents. So we've adjusted for the time that it would take and for, part-time versus full-time jobs. 36 local long-term jobs created or supported in McLean County. Those are long-term ongoing jobs. $43.7 million to the school district, $7.5 million to McLean County, and $71.5 million in total property taxes to all the property taxing districts over the life of the project. That's it.
Do we have questions from the board? Remember to say your name.
This is Julia Turner. I'm wondering what happens if they upgrade before the full depreciation over the 30 years, if they upgrade the turbines?
So is my understanding, if they were to repower, and we have had one case of this in Lee County, the Mendota Hills wind farm, they would have to go through new siting permitting, and it would be taxed as a new project. So it would restart at the megawatt, capacity of that project that gets reinstituted. I believe it'd be treated as a brand new project for tax purposes.
This is Drake Zimmerman. I'm the person who asked the Parkland question. Thank you very much for the map. I was curious as to, I figured there was some sort of overlap like that, but it looks like all the property would be in the Parkland's Community College District. So thank you very much for solving that.
Any other questions from the board? Does staff have questions? Would any interested parties have questions of this witness? Please come forward. Would you state your name and address for the record?
Okay, thank you. Bruce Isle at 700 East Park, number S-3, Libertyville, Illinois.
Spell your last name.
I-E-H-L. And my question is, as far as the economic benefits, do you have an idea how much accrues specifically to Bellflower and West Townships?
No, I didn't look at the township level. In general, the IMPLAN software does not recognize township boundaries. And so in order to do a township analysis, you kind of have to map your way from they do have zip codes. So you can get a 5-digit zip code, and then you have to kind of fudge the zip codes into townships. I've done that for other projects, but we did not look at the township in particular on this study.
Okay, thank you. And may I ask another question? If there were more turbines or more megawatts in the same area, would it generate more economic benefits?
Yes, the more turbines you have, the more property taxes that would generate. The more turbines, megawatts you have, the more capital expenditures you would have, so that would increase the economic impact.
So what we heard before is they're not planning to install all the turbines that they have sites for. It seemed like there's other open areas that could take a turbine. They're not planning to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, per the application, the maximum number of turbines will be 64 for this special use permit.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Julia's got one.
Yes, sorry. I know I'm going a little out of order here. This is Julia Turner. What about, the economic impact is obvious with the jobs and the impact from those jobs and then the taxes. Is it your area of expertise, or have you studied any impact from property values, either increase or decrease?
I have not looked at that. I think we have another witness that's looked at property value impacts.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I don't see any, so thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, our next witness is Michael Maroos, who is our property value impact expert. He's testifying remotely. I see him on the screen now, and he's unmuted himself. Mr. Maroos, you were sworn in, correct, at the last hearing?
Yes, last Tuesday night.
Okay, and Mr. Maroos has a PowerPoint, if that can be uploaded.
We get his name and address to the record.
Sure, go ahead. Mr. Maroos, go ahead and provide your name and address, and then you can begin your testimony.
Sure. Michael Maroos, 1550 Northwest Highway, Suite 401, Park Ridge. I'm president of Maroos and Company at the same address.
Could you spell your last name, and could you shut that mic off?
Michael, M-A-R-O-U-S, Maroos.
I think you can go ahead.
With my PowerPoint? Sure. Next slide. What this PowerPoint does is provide an overview of a 100+ page value impact study that was done specifically for Sapphire Sky. Basically, I reviewed the print, the studies, the setbacks, inspected the footprint area. We did research at sales transactions in the area, both for residential properties and also vacant land. I have appraised probably over 15,000 properties in my career with the specialization of market impact studies, which I've done several hundred, a variety of different type properties. I've studied many energy projects and looked at probably close to 20 wind projects in this. I graduated a degree in finance, and I'm a broker.
Mr. Maroos,
and been very,
you're breaking up. You're breaking up and our court reporter is not able to follow.
can I go slower? Will that help? If it's a problem, I could phone in if there's a clarity issue. Would that be helpful?
It has to be clear.
I will get closer to the microphone. Maybe that'll help the clarity issue. If not, I will phone in.
Mr. Maroos, go ahead. You can keep going. We are catching 90% of what you say, but it just occasionally breaks up.
So in summary, what was done was looking at matched pairs to see if there was any difference for properties that were proximate to turbines and similar properties that were in the same market area, and adjusted to see if there was any impact. And that is provided in my report with, I think, probably were 15 matched pairs, and there's no indication there's a negative impact on value. Also have contacted all the assessors with major wind in the state of Illinois, and there's been no successful tax appeals due to impact of turbines. In fact, the assessors do not assess residential in a wind farm any differently than they do similar properties in the area. In my study, I've also somewhat.
Mr. Maroos, why don't we pause and have you call in? I think we are catching most of what you say, but there's just enough of a breakup that we're having a problem. So why don't you call in, okay?
Is there a number on that's, well, let me look. Okay.
Are you finding the number, Mr. Maroos?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
We can hear you. There was a bit of an echo, though.
You have to
Let me my
computer.
Yes, that's what I'm doing. Okay.
You have to log out from your computer.
Okay, how is this? Hello?
Yes, that's good.
Okay, sorry about that. I don't know what happened to the connection. So I'll go back a little bit and basically summarize what the report shows. First of all, matched pairs were done looking at similar properties proximate to turbines
to properties in the same market area, size, age, lot size, building size that were not proximate to turbines. There's over 15 matched pairs provided in the report, and they indicate no negative impact on value. Then assessors, a survey was done contacting assessors with all the major wind in the state of Illinois and interviewing them to get their analysis and their experience with the impact of wind farms, and if they provided any different assessments or values for properties in the wind farms. In every instance, they did not. There have been no successful tax appeals because of the proximity of a wind farm, and I've also done that in about 7 other states, probably with several million acres of properties, same conclusion. In the report, I also interviewed parties that had experience with the sale of properties and proximate to wind farms. And clearly, just like with anything else where people have personal opinions, there were some people that loved them, some people that didn't, but there was no indication that there was a negative impact. I took into consideration the economic benefits, as you heard clearly from Dr. Loomis, which positive economics is generally a significant positive impact to real estate. There's been multiple peer-reviewed studies that have looked at the development of turbines throughout the U.S. and clearly the findings so far, properly done primarily in rural areas, there's been no indication of negative impact. So my executive summary that's found in the PowerPoint, and in the PowerPoint there's pictures of houses that had sold in the market area with the pictures of them, location, that just all found in my study. But essentially that the proposed use will meet or exceed all the required development and operating standards, controls in place to ensure ongoing compliance. There's significant financial benefits. There are significant well-paid jobs generated. The residences proximate to the turbines with this type of development, in my opinion, will not be negatively impacted. Ag properties are generally positively impacted. And in conclusion, the study supports my opinion that there's no negative impact on value when this project is in place, developed, and operational. That concludes my report tonight.
Thanks, Mr. Maroos. I just have a few follow-up questions for you. In the analysis that you did, and that is in the part of the applicant's application, did you look specifically for impacts using properties located in McLean County?
Yes. In this instance, I believe I had 3 matched pairs of properties that were similar, but for some more proximate turbines, and the other comparable properties were not. And those are provided in the PowerPoint and are also in the report.
And were the results of those match pair analysis then consistent with your other research and findings, in that you were unable to find any negative impact resulting from the existing wind energy projects in the county?
Yes, they were quite consistent.
Thank you, Mr. Maroos. That's all the questions I have.
Thank you.
Do we have any questions from the board?
This is Julia Turner. Mr. Maroos, you had mentioned just as in many things, there are people who like wind farms and people who don't. Does that alone limit the number of people you would have buying your house if all other things were equal? So if there are two houses out in the country and there are no wind farms, wouldn't more people want to buy them than if there were wind farms? If some people like wind farms and others don't?
It's a good and complex question. You know, it's kind of like looking at a two-story compared to a ranch-style house, and one with a barn and one without. A lot of it's personal preference. However, you know, it depends on the other alternatives. It depends on the market in general. It depends on the economics of the market. If all things were equal, it's hard to quantify, because what we found in the rural areas, the key to value is location, the economics of the area, the quality of the school system, being on a paved road, proximity to medical, proximity to services. And then these other issues become more of a personal opinion, somewhat like the color of a house. So you can't really quantify it, because it's kind of down low on the, what we say, the adjustment list.
Okay, thank you. That makes sense.
Any other questions from the board?
Yes, it's Mike Kurtz. You quoted the studies that say that there is no effect on the value of the houses. Are there any studies out there that contradict those?
Not in the U.S. that are peer reviewed. There are blogs where people that are negative to wind, you know, indicate and cite some transactions that took place in 2008 to 2010, which was the real estate recession, which when you peel it back, you find out that it was, you know, a lot of the rural properties in certain areas, and even in the more suburban areas, dropped 20 to 30%. So it really wasn't attributed to wind. There may be a study, I don't know if it's Finland or somewhere in Eastern Europe, that came out in the last year that's negative. But again, it's kind of an average price point of $350,000 in a more densely populated area. But, you know, there's clearly blog opinions that are negative to wind, but not peer reviewed in the U.S. And there is an assessor that did a study in Canada, and again, it was not peer reviewed, and it was really analyzing assessed values, not values based on transactions.
So predominantly, there doesn't seem to be any real evidence that property values do go down.
There's no, in my opinion, you know, based on the assessors, based on these peer-reviewed articles, and based on transactional data for projects similar to the subject in similar situations, that indicate any negative impact. In fact, the positive economics to the schools, the various taxing bodies, and to the owners itself, what it does to the ag community, it basically becomes part of the fabric of the community and another part of the ag community. And probably the best example is what's happened in Iowa. What has also brought on, I think, over several $1 billion of data centers that have been developed because they want to tie into the renewable energy.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That question was from Michael Kurtz, Kurtz.
Ruth Novosad. Are the pairs, the matched pairs that you have in your study, are they owner occupied homes? Or do you have any information that they are or aren't?
I don't have any information that any of them are not. They appeared to be owner occupied, but what can happen is they can be owner occupied at sale, and at some point thereafter, somebody could decide to rent, or a lot of times they'll rent to a family member. So, I mean, that can change basically at a moment's notice, but for the most part, they appeared to all be owner occupied.
Okay, asking one more time, any more questions from the board? Staff? Would anyone in the audience have questions of this witness?
Tim Jolly.
Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Just a question on your comparisons. How many comparisons do you have of non-participating owners in the proximity of a wind turbine and participating owners, which is getting a financial benefit from signing up a contract with companies?
That's an interesting question, but it's not a criteria because the market is, reflecting the price of the sale. So most of these sales are under 5 acres, and throughout the country, that Midwest particularly, that I've used. So generally, to support a turbine, you have to have 100 to 200 acres, which puts it in a whole different category where you have a significant benefit. Now, yes, there's sometimes good neighbor agreements, but that's not an adjustment that I made.
So in your opinion, if somebody is a non-participant that has no financial benefit to being close to a turbine versus somebody that signs up a contract with the turbine company to get a financial benefit, if you're looking in likewise property values, the person without the financial benefit would probably have a lower property value, not being able to resale. Is that correct?
Well, that's a different analysis, but clearly if somebody's getting $200 or $300 a month, and if you capitalize that like we do as appraisers, that might be a $2,000 to $4,000 economic advantage. It may be factored into it, but I'm looking at match pairs, one that's proximate to turbines and another one that's in a similar area that's not proximate. And my concern is negative impact on value, not who has the highest value in a wind farm.
Okay, and you mentioned something about 3 match pairs in McLean County. However, we don't see anything on the screen. I'm on computer to see any kind of a comparison between the 3 match pairs in McLean County. Would you be able to provide that somehow, or can they in Bloomington?
Yes, it's in my full report, that analysis.
I don't have a copy of that report here at home, sir.
It was, I think, part of the submission, but I'll leave that to legal counsel. But I mean, there is a full report that goes through that. Yes.
All right, I'll have to try and find that.
And that report is posted online.
Would it be fair to say that a house that is within 1 mile of a turbine would be possibly worth less than 10 miles away from a turbine, comparable in structures and everything like that?
I mean, the answer is you go 10 miles and you may put it in a different market. In my opinion, no, because the one within 1 mile is part, of the area of the wind farm. I don't know if it's in the footprint or not, depends how it sits. but the whole area is receiving economic benefit. The property 10 miles away may not. And again, it goes down to personal choice, and it goes to the vitality of the area. So the answer is not necessarily and probably not.
Well, I'm talking by the individual that owns each home, though. If you have one person take out all the, you're talking about community benefit. I'm talking about the people that actually own the houses. A person 1 mile away from a turbine is going to get less for their house than somebody 10 miles away that doesn't have to deal with flicker, the sound, the construction, everything like that. But the exact same house, it would be fair to say that that 1 mile away would be worth less than 10 miles away. Isn't that correct?
No, it's not correct. In that you basically had a statement, not a question. But again, you have to factor in any major project, whether it be a church, a shopping center, industrial facility, will have construction issues. It's just part of what happens with development. And then you talk about the individual versus the community. Well, the community infrastructure impacts the individual. The quality of the school system impacts the individual. The quality of the road system impacts the individual. So it's just not solely impactful or non-impactful. It's an impact of the community and the benefit of the community. And the studies and the analysis shows that there's not a negative impact.
So I take it that you're saying that the place 1 mile away from a turbine where it's noisy and they have to deal with the windmill and they have to deal with all the circumstances close to it, or even go to a half a mile, or even the bare minimum of the setbacks at 1,650 feet, that would be just as enjoyable to live there as 10 miles away where there's no windmills?
So you've asked me about 4 questions because you did the distance, but assuming the proximity issues, and in this situation, they're very, in fact, I think 1650 is below the threshold. So let's go to your half a mile. Again, properly done with the benefits that it has to the immediate community, the ag community, the property owners, the infrastructure, my answer is no. And the issues with sound, there's a separate study having to do with sound and shadow flicker. So those are part of the controls that are designed to protect those homeowners.
I respectfully disagree with that because there is a big difference between being by them and not being by them.
Just for
and trying to
questions,
resell
Mr.
your home.
Ballin,
So
no
that,
testimony.
that's a statement. I understand. That's all the questions I have.
Thank you. Any other questions? Do you have a question? No? I think that's it.
I apologize for the virtual poor connection in the beginning.
You did fine.
No, thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, that's all the witnesses we are putting on in our case in chief. We do have some other individuals that were available for questions, but that is all the witnesses we plan to have on the stand during our case.
You surprise me every time. Phil has some things he wants to read into the record.
As you may recall, we have asked people to, during the pandemic, to send us communications that we would read into the record. And I read in the resolutions from the Leroy and Blue Ridge school districts. And I have received quite a few letters. I've received 64 letters signed by individual property owners in this wind farm area. And they go as follows. Dear Mr. Dick, I am a participating landowner in Invenergy's proposed wind project. This project represents a way to diversify our income and secure a stable source of revenue for my family's future. As a landowner, I am exercising my property rights when deciding how to use my land in a way that represents the best opportunity for our family. I'm also glad that once the project is complete, the land can be farmed as it was previously. Beyond the benefit to my family, the community will gain construction and operations jobs. Additional businesses will probably spring up in the area, which will have positive economic benefits, and McLean County will gain millions of dollars in annual property taxes. I fully support Sapphire Sky Wind Project, and I ask you to approve the text amendment and special use permit, which will bring this project to fruition. Thank you for your consideration, and this is Paul Selmeyer. A similar letter sent to me was sent by the following persons: Eric Zare, Terry March, Kirk Swigert, Larry Brossman, Cole and Wendy Dooley, Janice Priest, Betty Christian, Rich Schrader, Joan Ruth Harrigan, Dean and Janice Summer, Tim Bidner, Lee Bidner, Emily Maurer, Sheila Murphy, Donald and Brenda Wallace, Michael and Vicki Bowman, William Abbott, Becky Kuntz, David Bright, Mary Jo Copenhagen, Diane Schultz, President and CEO of the Baby Fold, John Jacobson, Peggy J. Jones, Terry and Gloria Stevens, Stephanie Horner, Brian Zare, Joe Allen Parks, James Huddlestone, Mark F. Schultz, trustee of the Schultz Bellflower Farm, Merle Woods, John Maurer, David McLaughlin, Jeffrey Zare, Warren J. Bain, Nancy Mallon, Carl Swigert, Felda Swigert, William J. Giles, David and Diana Efaw, Royal and Beverly Springer, Philip and Charlotte Lawrence, Keith and Dana Swigert, Brian and Angela Artman, Russell and Justine Myers, Janet Jones, Susan Sears, William and Virginia Forrest, Stacia and Jeffrey Turner, Mike McLaughlin, Vernon Golden, Mark and Judith Wallace, Lloyd and Loretta Power, Gretchen Ostenberg, Lethea Barnard, trustee of the Barnard Testamentary Trust, Sharon Blackwell, Rita Flint, Donald Owen, John Schmidt, First Mid-Ag Services Agent Trustee Arthur Williams Trust, Paula S. Stencil, Parker Kemp, Lloyd and Loretta Power, trustee of the M.O. Flanagan Trust, and Royal Springer. I have all these original signed papers from these folks. I received another letter here from Parker Kemp that reads as follows: I'm a resident of McLean County and a participating landowner in the Blooming Grove wind energy that was recently developed by Invenergy. My family has owned farmland in the area for decades and was interested in understanding the impact a wind farm could have on a rural community like Lexington, as well as the opportunity to have income from wind energy as a hedge against agricultural commodity markets. Invenergy has been a partner throughout the development phase of the Blooming Grove project. There will always be challenges when constructing a wind farm, and while every step has not gone perfectly, each time our family or farm tenants have had concerns, Invenergy has been at the table to discuss a quick resolution. If another opportunity for an energy project should arise, we would be willing to work with Invenergy again on future projects. My family is interested in keeping our farmland in the family for the foreseeable future. By being able to participate in projects like Blooming Grove, we have added a stable income stream for years to come, in addition, in the income from the row crop agricultural production. We appreciate McLean County and the state of Illinois protecting landowner interests through the AIMA, or that's the Ag Impact Mitigation Agreement, and other zoning requirements, but also allowing the landowners the ability to choose whether they want to exercise property rights and participate in wind energy projects. We hope that Blooming Grove will have a lasting positive impact on the local community, including local school districts and McLean County at large. We support Invenergy's continued presence in McLean County and the consideration of the Sapphire Sky Wind Energy Project. Signed, Parker Kemp. A communication from Neil Finland says, I would like to add my comments into the testimony for the upcoming hearing pertaining to the Sapphire Wind Farm project. My firm has been deeply involved in numerous wind farm projects throughout Illinois and the Midwest and have found Invenergy to be the best of the best when it comes to development of these types of projects. I have been involved in the land development business for 40-plus year career and am cautious about client selection to ensure that those that we represent keep promise and commitments without fail. We have found Invenergy to be this kind of company and have seen this consistently in past projects. I respectfully request that my comments be part of the testimony and entered into the record, as I believe this background reference is critical to the approval of the project and is offered as testimony to the integrity of Invenergy. Our belief is that Invenergy can be trusted to complete this project to your and the county's satisfaction. Should you have any questions, feel free to contact me. Thanks, Neil Finland, PE Principal of the Farnsworth Group. I have the following communication from Brian Warsaw. He says, greetings, esteemed members of the McLean County Zoning Board of Appeals. I am writing to express the opposition held by myself and many Bellflower Village, Bellflower Township, and neighboring residents to the proposed Sapphire Sky wind turbine farm. I ask you to please hear and act on our call for help. We must ensure the protection, health, and quality of life of the people and environment we know and love. People living around and within wind turbine farms report many problems: drainage troubles, unresolved road issues, subpar restoration efforts, lower property values, and health and quality of life problems. Wind farms compromise the safety of the entire area they encompass. They disrupt Doppler weather radar and can mask severe weather and tornadoes. Don Waddle, a DeWitt County resident with a degree in physics and a member of the American Meteorological Society, has shown research strongly supporting how turbines disrupt Doppler radar at the National Weather Service facility in Lincoln. This was documented near Maroos in just recent years. There's also the health issues of shadow flicker, sleep problems, increased headache activity, sound, infrasound, and electromagnetic field problems. The superintendent of schools for Armstrong Township High School and Armstrong Ellis District number 61 in Vermilion County, Illinois, documented in a letter that students were having increased medical issues such as headaches, lack of sleep, and jaw issues seem to be the most common. Our symptoms being ringing in the ears, elevated blood pressure, heart palpitations, chest pressure, and earache. He also stated that they will be losing families because they can no longer handle the shadow flicker and noise issues. I myself have experienced some of these symptoms while staying multiple nights house sitting on a farmstead with a wind turbine 1,500 feet away. Our beautiful skyline and landscape is now home to numerous eagles. Having them in our area is a blessing, a privilege, and a responsibility. Please help us protect them and their territory. We feel deeply honored by their presence. They are a welcome and loved part of our community and ecosystem. They deserve protection and safe skies. We cannot put the people we love, care about, and share our lives with at risk. You have the power to help us. Your actions can help preserve what we cherish so dearly. Please use your authority and allow this area to remain a turbine-free zone. I thank you for your precious time. Sincerely, Brian Warsaw, University of Illinois Research Technician in Horticulture and Agronomy, Bellflower Township resident. This is a communication from Judy Rand. Dear department members, I received a McLean County zoning notice from your office on Tuesday, May 18, 2021. Upon reading the document, I called the phone number 888-5160 on Wednesday, May 19, 2021, and talked with Daryl, who answered the phone. After discussing why I called, he transferred me to Director Phil Dick. Mr. Dick sent me a link by email for the 1,008-page document submitted to your office by Sapphire Sky Wind Energy. In March 2021, I purchased 40 acres in West Township in 2 parcels where many of the wind turbines are scheduled to be erected. 20 acres, and she gives a PIN number, and legally described as the west 1/2 of the southeast quarter of the southeast quarter of Section 35, Township 22 North, Range 5 east of the 3rd Principal Meridian, McLean County, Illinois, 20 acres, and she gives another parcel number, and she describes it legally. Says, I live out of state and was unaware that my neighbors were signing contracts for wind turbines and road access to the turbines. In fact, I am very disappointed that the sellers and lawyers involved did not disclose this information to me when I was considering buying the property. The parcels I purchased were appealing to me as an investment, not only for revenue from farming, but also the capacity to sell acreage along the creek for possible building site on Route 136. I am concerned that my potential homestead building site will no longer be appealing to a buyer with the wind turbines surrounding the property that will be seen and heard 24/7. In other words, I am opposed to the construction of wind turbines in West Township, specifically the turbine proposed for the south of the property. I had planned to sell to a prospective buyer, but also proposed turbines in Bellflower Township. If the proposal for the construction of the wind turbines is approved, what course or compensation would I be provided for the loss of a potential home building site? Respectfully submitted, Judy Rand, 22286 County Road M, West Unity, Ohio. I received the following communication from Bobby Brown, project manager for Buckeye Partners LP Gas. He says, Dear Building and Zoning Commission, this letter is to inform you Buckeye Partners LP and Buckeye Pipeline Company LP hereinafter Buckeye owns or operates multiple high-pressure liquid pipelines within McLean County, Illinois, where the new proposed Sapphire Sky Wind project owned by Invenergy is to be located. Buckeye would officially like to request our, quote, right-of-way use restriction guidelines manual version 6.2 be entered into the public record at your meeting June 1, 2021, and that Invenergy will follow said guidelines at a minimum and pay special attention to the following. 1, Section 3.4.5 electrical fiber optics and communication cables. 2, Section 3.5 temporary access road and heavy construction vehicle crossings. 3, Section 3.11 wind turbines. 4, Section 4.0 deviations and exceptions. Buckeye is one of the nation's largest operators of petroleum pipelines and engages in numerous activities to ensure the safety of the communities that it operates in. I would like to encourage you to visit Buckeye's website at www.buckeye.com. As a longtime neighbor in your community and a company dedicated to safety, we would like to invite you to contact Buckeye with any questions that you may have about the notification letter or the company. Please feel free to contact me at 484-951-7317 or via email at cmcpike@buckeye.com. Sincerely, Chris Pike. And he submitted this whole document, which while I will submit as part of the record, but I will not read it. That's all I have.
I think Phil's got a list of people that want to testify. He's going to go through the list.
Don Hanslow. Don Hanslow, do you want to speak at this offer testimony? You had indicated that you did.
No, thank you. My questions have all been answered.
Thank you. Kevin D, DEA.
No further questions.
Caitlin Dekerskister. I'm pronouncing that terribly. The last name is Dekersgieter.
Yes, I'd like to make a public comment.
At this point, we'll have to swear you in.
Okay.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony is given in this case now and hearing will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Would you state your name and address for the record?
My name is Caitlin Dekerskider, and I live at 912 Ironwood Drive in Normal.
Could you spell your name for the court reporter, please?
Absolutely. Caitlin, K-A-T-E-L-Y-N, and then Dekerskider, D-E-K-E-E-R-S-G-I-E-T-E-R.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Caitlin Dekerskider, and I am here to speak in support of Invenergy's Sapphire Sky Wind Farm project. While the economic benefits of this wind farm are apparent in projections for job creation and revenue, this project is also an investment in the vitality of our future. Wind energy is an innovative way to reduce carbon emissions and decrease reliance on older energy forms that pollute our Earth. Renewable energy projects such as the Sapphire Sky Wind Farm present an exciting opportunity for McLean County to continue to lead the transition to sustainable green energy benefiting our climate. McLean County can be a model for the rest of our country in continuing to foster clean energy that's both economically dependable and innovative in helping create a better environment for future generations. I respectfully request that the Zoning Board of Appeals vote to support this project. Thank you.
Hang on. Would the board, anyone on the board have questions of this witness? Staff?
No.
Would the applicant have any questions? Would anybody in the audience have questions of this witness? I think you're off the hook. Thank you.
Oh, what did you want? That was pretty quick here.
Oh, we got one question.
No, we have you. Yes, ma'am. Have you
You gotta
lived
state your
around?
name, Mr. Jolly.
Okay, I'm sorry. Tim Jolly. Ready?
Go ahead.
Have you lived in a footprint or close to a windmill at any time in your life?
I live about 2 miles away from a wind farm.
Windmill. The turbine itself, not the farm.
Have you experienced any of the noise up close, like within, say, half a mile from one?
No.
Thank you. That is all.
Any other questions? I think you're off the hook now. Thank you.
Phil Rouse.
No, I have all my questions were answered. Thank you.
Rain Abushamanad. Abushhanab.
How you doing? My name is Ryan Abushanab. If you would like the spelling, I can provide that.
Please.
Yeah, Ryan is spelled Raian, N as in no. Last name A, B as in boy, Ushanab, B as in boy.
You get it, Phil? I need to swear you in if that's all right.
Yes, sir.
And we need your address too.
103 East Willow, Normal, Illinois.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you should give in this case now and hearing be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
You can go ahead.
Okay. My name is Ryan Abushanab, and I am here to speak in support of Invenergy's Sapphire Sky Wind Project. Wind energy provides significant economic opportunity for various stakeholders in our county, from
Sir,
school
could you
districts.
speak a little closer to the mic and not so fast, please?
Yeah. I am here to speak in support of Invenergy's Sapphire Sky Wind Project. Wind energy provides significant economic opportunity for various stakeholders in our county, from school districts and local taxing districts to local labor workers for whom working on wind projects is an important part of their careers. Additionally, wind energy creates agricultural opportunities for farmers and landowners who have signed leases and hope to diversify their portfolios. Fundamentally, landowners whom wish to host turbines on their property should be permitted to do so. McLean County has had a lot of success with wind projects. We should continue this trend of harnessing clean, homegrown American energy right here in our community. I encourage the ZBA to vote yes in support of this project. That's all.
Would anyone on board have questions of this witness? Staff? No. Applicants? Anyone in the audience have questions? Looks like we're all clear. Thank you.
Thank you.
David Flesh.
Yes, I'm here.
Would you like to be sworn in?
Yes, please.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony is given in this case now and hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Would you state your name and address for the record?
Yes. David Flesh, Flesch. My address is 903 West College Avenue, Normal, Illinois.
I think you can go ahead.
Okay, I just have a public comment. Good evening, members of the Zoning Board of Appeals. My name is David Flesh, and I'm here to support Invenergy's Sapphire Sky Wind Project. McLean County is on an upward economic trend right now. Rivian's plant has been a game changer for our community, and while it has not even reached its full performance yet, we are already seeing the economic effects that it has had throughout our community. Our real estate market is booming, and people are moving to McLean County because they see opportunity here. Prior to Rivian coming to McLean County, wind farms were the first major clean energy investments in our community. Over the last 12 years, McLean County has seen 5 wind projects constructed, 2 of which have been constructed within the last couple of years. Wind has been one of our community's strengths, and we should continue to grow the wind energy sector of our economy. This project has the chance to impact a new part of the county, with over $300 million plus investment, which will significantly benefit our rural school districts. Lastly, wind offers a chance for our county to play a role in American energy independence and contributing towards our country not having to rely on foreign oil. With all of these benefits combined, I respectfully ask the ZBA to recommend approval of this project. Thank you for your time.
Any questions from the board of this witness? Staff?
No.
And the applicant? Anyone in the audience have questions? I think you're off the hook. Thank you.
Shannon or Tim Brooks? D. Stilo, Stielow.
I'm here.
Would you like to be sworn in?
Absolutely.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you give us in this case now and hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Would you state your name and address for the record?
My name is D. Stilo, Stielow. My address is 3605 North 3300 East Road, Palmer City. Ready?
You go ahead.
Okay. We are located in parcel 27, which is slated to have at least 1 turbine at the moment. We are in opposition. We moved out here, a little over 20 years ago with the idea of this being our retirement area. When we moved out here, one of the most appealing, ideas of this property when we found it was it gives us an unobstructed 360-degree view of the land around us for miles. Currently, the plans right now call for 7 or 8 turbines within almost a 2 to 3 mile radius. So basically, there goes our view. Right now, we can look to the north and see 8 to 10 miles on a clear day, which means that we can actually see the wind farm that stretches from Downs clear to Gibson City. When the wind is blowing in our direction, yes, we can actually hear it. One of the things that isn't discussed, or at least I haven't heard it, is the blinking lights at night. We see that on the horizon as well. I imagine we're going to see that up close at night too, here. So when we combine the factors of the noise, the lights, the flicker, the construction, the interruption, the lack of enjoyment that we're going to have in the future, I think we can strongly say that we're in opposition. And we just want to know, we want the board to know that we're taxpayers too. We're going to get impacted. It's not just, you know, the farmers and those who are signing agreements who are benefiting. We're impacted too. We're taxpayers. We've been contributing to the, you know, the community since we've been here. We drive to Bloomington every day to work. We drive back home to our little, you know, piece of paradise. But we're impacted too. And we just want you guys to know that, and please consider that.
Questions from the board?
This is Julia Turner. Ms.
Yeah.
Kilo, have you looked at the application, and do you know, if you have, do you know what residence number you are or receptor number you are on their list?
I believe we're 49 or 42. I sent a copy of, I did a little clip of it, sent it to Phil earlier today. Let me see if I can pull it up on my phone.
49 or 42? Must be 49 because there's no 42.
Okay.
Oh, wait,
Yeah.
that's 5.
Sorry.
Wait. Sorry, that's 549. So you could be,
Hang on.
sorry.
Let's see if I can pull it up on my phone. It's kind of small on my phone. It's a 42.
So it's
R. It's T42, which is the turbine number.
Oh, okay. So T40, that's the turbine number. Do you know your receptor number or your resident? What number that would be?
No, I don't. I'm sorry.
Okay. I would request that you look at the application and see if you can figure that out and get back to us on that. Get back to me on that. I'm interested in that.
Okay, I can do that.
Thank you.
Staff have questions? The applicants have questions? Would anyone in the audience have questions of this witness? Thank you.
Thank you.
Tim Killian,
In person. Hit that right-hand button. Would you like to be sworn in or affirmed?
Don't care.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony is given in this case now and hearing will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Would you state your name and address for the record?
Tim Killian, Killian,
IAN 28525N 2380 East RD Gridley.
You get it, Phil? Could you repeat it again, please? I'm sorry.
The address,
Yes.
28525N 2380 East RD Gridley.
Thank you.
You go ahead.
If past performance is an indication of how the future will go, if there is no change. This past year, Invenergy developed the Blooming Grove Wind Farm in 5 townships of northern McLean County with the permission of the county board. The townships also had a road use agreement with the developer. The rural residents had to endure dusty gravel roads because the oil and chip roads had to be pulverized so the extreme loads could travel on those roads. Water trucks were used to control the dust. The highway commissioners had to beg and pester Invenergy to get water trucks to control the dust. This was an ongoing problem for the residents because Invenergy was reluctant to keep water trucks on the job. In the road use agreement, 2 jump bridges were agreed to be installed to protect 2 structures. Loads were using the Payne Bridge before a jump bridge was installed. After consulting with the engineering firm Farnsworth Group, Farnsworth recommended Invenergy provide the $500,000 for the replacement of the structure. 2700 North Road, location of the Payne Bridge, was closed to protect the bridge. This was a problem for the residents and the developer because it was a major route for concrete trucks. It was late May when Invenergy finally ordered the jump bridge, and weeks later before the bridge was installed. This was a clear violation of the Transportation Impact Agreement that we had all agreed to at the beginning of the project. In meetings, it was agreed that one-way traffic was necessary on narrow roads. The request was not followed. 2 concrete trucks were rolled during the development. As the development came close to the end of construction, it was a rush to get out of here. There was no sign-off on restoration work that was completed, no punch list to follow. Maybe the road districts need a better road use agreement that has more leverage. It was at times a process of no response from an Invenergy, the developer. Is there a way the McLean County Board and Zoning, who authorized permission for the development of a wind farm, to hold a developer in the county more accountable and assist the other units of government with respect for the road use agreement? That's all I have to say. We need the assistance as highway commissioners of the county board and zoning.
He says the county top dog's on the phone if you want to talk to him.
He's on the screen.
He's on the screen, Mr. Hoolan. Well,
About what?
about your concerns.
Oh, I have talked to the McLean County Highway Department. They've been in our corner. They're
Okay.
aware of these situations.
Okay. Questions from the board?
I guess if I don't understand if there's issues and the highway department's in your corner, what more can the county board and zoning do?
The response was so slow when the highway commissioners would make a request that if the county board or zoning would have suspended their operation, maybe their hearing and response would have been better and more in line with getting the project completed safely.
We're in your corner.
Guess I didn't look in the right corner.
Well, we gotta know there's a problem.
Mr. Dick was well aware. And he did help us out on the dust. With EDPR, we had 27 miles of gravel road, and we had 5 water trucks. With Invenergy, we had 43 miles of gravel road, and we had 3 water trucks. It wasn't until Mr. Dick got involved that we did get up to 5 trucks out there. The dust is such an issue. We have to grind the roads up. If you don't grind them up, they cannot use roads. They just can't support the loads. The loads will range anywhere from 120,000 pounds is a light load. That will be a blade. But the other loads exceed 200,000 pounds and go up to as high as 280,000 pounds. These are serious loads, and the roads need to be addressed, and they were beefed up in order to handle these loads.
So would you suggest that be looking at this for any other approval is done? I mean, if this would be approved or put in some kind of stipulations that your observations from the last one would be followed for this one?
I could assist the writing of new road use agreements, I can guarantee you that.
Well, that's what we're asking.
Yes. And West Township and Bellflower Township, I've been in touch with them.
You made the comment that they were in a hurry to leave at the end of the project. Was everything resolved to your satisfaction, or did they just leave?
Everything was not resolved. There was no checkoff at the end of the project where they would say, well, we've taken care of these radii. Do they look okay? The radii restorations were not satisfactory, and they have had to be addressed this spring, along with cable crossings on non-project roads. Those have had to be addressed. We had places where they had cable crossings and they did not put culverts in the ditches, but left them full of dirt, where they had used it as padding to get across the road. So we have yet to correct those areas.
Is there some sort of performance bond that's included in the road use agreement generally?
Performance bond, I'm not sure, but there is a letter of credit. And when you have something that is a safety issue on the roads, you need a rapid response and not weeks of shuffling around.
When you say you would like our support,
Julia Turner.
I'm trying to figure out. I'm sorry, it's Julia Turner. I'm trying to figure out, I feel like what we can do is connect you with the other road commissioners, like, as you said, that you've been in touch with them. And beyond that, is there something specifically you would like us to put as stipulations?
The stipulation will be that you can withdraw the permit to develop should an emergency or a non-response from the developer arise. When I had to close that road 2700 North, that was not a happy day in the neighborhood, but it was the only way I had to protect that Payne Bridge.
I guess
Should
I don't understand.
determine what's response. Sorry.
You were trying to protect a bridge?
Yes, sir.
Yep. They would have specific weight limits on those bridges that they wouldn't be allowed to use. If my understanding of bridge law is anything at all, there would be limits to the weight that could be applied to a bridge. Am I correct on that statement?
That is correct. We had the structures reviewed by an engineering firm, Farnsworth Group, and they said, don't use a bridge unless you have a jump bridge. Now, will it handle a concrete truck? It will. But Farnsworth said that if you have multiple concrete trucks, that exceeds and diminishes the life of that structure. And I don't have the figure with me right now, but it was hundreds of concrete trucks a week were crossing that bridge, empty and loaded. And after a few days of that, we closed the road because there was no intentions of putting the jump bridge in. Because when you order a jump bridge in May and it needed to be in before that, and it was weeks before they got it.
Oh, okay, I think I understand it now. The jump bridge just didn't arrive.
It didn't arrive.
So did you have to close it to all traffic or just the construction traffic?
It was closed to all traffic for a short period of time, and then pickup trucks and cars were allowed to travel it.
But no concrete trucks?
No concrete trucks, no construction trucks, no.
Questions from staff? The applicants have any questions?
No, we don't.
Would anyone else have questions of this witness?
Tim Jolly.
Go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Killian, Road 2700 that you're describing, that is a road that's connected to an overpass over Route 55, is that correct?
That's correct.
How many overpasses are between Chenal and Lexington where that was affected?
Mr. Chairman, the rules of the zoning board prohibit friendly cross-examination. Mr.
I'm not
Jolly's
friendly.
opposed to the project. He's attempting to conduct friendly cross-examination here.
This isn't friendly conversation. This is facts.
Well, you get to the point and we'll move on.
I'm trying to get to the point if I wasn't interrupted. How many overpasses are between Chenal and Lexington, Mr.
There's
Killian?
2 over I-55.
So would that directly affect any kind of ambulance or fire service or anything that would be out to that area?
It would have had some impact upon it.
Okay, that is all. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Go ahead, Catherine. State your name and address, please.
Catherine, Catherine, Metzger, Metsker, 20645 North, 825 East Road, Carlock, Carlock, Illinois.
You can go ahead, thanks.
Mr. Killian, does Invenergy still owe fines that were assessed by the road commissioners?
We're not allowed to assess fines. We were allowed to cause violations to be levied.
So do they have violations they have not paid to the townships?
Yes.
Thank you. To what, how much for your township?
We have one pending for $150,000.
And it's not been paid?
It has not been paid.
Very good, thank you.
Any other questions?
I do have a follow-up question.
Pardon me?
I have a follow-up question.
Okay.
You're represented by counsel, correct, in your dealings with Invenergy?
Yes, the road district is.
Yes. And your counsel's in communication with me, correct?
And you are?
I'm Jim Griffin.
Yes.
Yes. And you're aware that there's been communications concerning the notice of violations that were issued by your township road district?
Yes.
And we're working on attempts to resolve those, correct?
We are working on it, yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I'm only supposed to let you ask one, but come ahead.
Follow up what he just said. When were those fines levied? Or when was the violations levied? During the project, correct?
If I remember correctly, it's been quite a while.
So it's been a long time.
It has, but we have discussed them, but we've never arrived at a payment of those violations.
Very good. So they're dragging their feet again.
I think we'll let you off the hook.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in.
Eugene Fuller. Do you know what this name is? That's Mr. Peterson. Ed Peterson.
Would you like to be sworn in, Mr. Peterson?
Sure.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you give in this case now and hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Would you state your name and address for the record?
My name is Ed Peterson. I live at 31630 East 500 North Road, Aerosmith. I started investing in property in here in 2006. Moved down here in 2007. Okay, I have invested approximately $15 million in the county in land, drainage, buildings, grain facilities, all which local people receive the money. Prior to that, I spent 30 years with 597 pipe fitters in construction. If I put approximately half that time, I was a supervisor. If we put a system in, all right, I cannot sign off on a test or qualification, or no one from the company that I work for can sign off on it. All evaluations and testing must be done by a third independent party. You have received and heard testimony from people here that are all paid by Invenergy. In the construction world and in the actual conditions in the field, that's not allowed. And I strongly urge that the board hire their own consultants, gather their own data and evaluate it, because I'm not saying the data is wrong, but it's not trusted, and that's not the procedure followed. So, as far as the sound, noise pollution that they state, okay, is at acceptable levels, okay, the FDA allows so much rodent feces for you to consume, okay? And I don't think anybody here would like to do that every day. I commend Mr. Finnegan there for addressing the flicker, all right, issue on homes, all right? But that kind of got shot down because it wouldn't be a viable project, okay? Everybody's here tonight because there's great sums of money. This project is approximately 66% federally funded. There is another 10% additional tax incentive through the state. So the project is approximately, maybe, don't know for sure, but up to 76% funded by other money than Invenergy. Invenergy's down here for the money, okay? My calculations, which I used off of windenergy.com, all right? A small turbine will become profitable after 1 year, 5 kW supported by cables. A medium-sized turbine will take up to 15 years to become profitable. A large turbine may not become profitable even after 40 years. And a 2 megawatt turbine, which I cannot guarantee this calculation because I cannot get a cost of wholesale electric sold, will create $416,100 per year. A 4.5 megawatt turbine will create $936,225 per year. But I cannot guarantee that because I cannot get anyone to give me an answer on wholesale electricity. In section 17, I have invested $350,000 in drainage. In sections 23 and 24, I have invested over $125,000 in drainage. Now granted, they fixed the tile, but if anybody knows and has worked with a pipeline, we repair tiles, and in 3 to 5 years later, the trench settles, the tiles need to be repaired again. Where will Invenergy be in 3 to 5 years? And where will the landowner be in that situation? That's what I have to comment about. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions on the board? Staff? The applicants have questions? Would anyone in the audience have questions of this witness?
Apologize for getting out of order here, but I think the AMA has some protections for what Ed's referring to. Why I understand the AMA, the tile lines will be fixed and there's no limitations on 3 years. I think Illinois has some protections for the landowners through the AMA. And the county too, should have some protection for the land.
Who will repair them? County?
Infinity would be doing the repairs, but they'd be paid for, they'd be hiring a qualified contractor to do it, is how I understand it.
Is there any guarantee Invenergy will be here in 5 years?
I don't think we can guarantee anything, but somebody, there's a bond for this kind of stuff. Maybe Mr. Griffin can answer that question.
The project operator, be it Invenergy or any subsequent owner, remains responsible under all of the project agreements, including the AMA. And that's an ongoing requirement all during the operation of the project. It does provide, and you can look at it online in the Illinois Department of Ag website, they have their template agreement, and it does provide requirements as to how and when damage to drain tile lines must be repaired by the project operator.
That remains to be seen in the future. Another item is the shadow flicker study. I cannot assume is accurate to any degree. The Bellflower office tells me it will be midsummer before placement of the turbines are determined. So at this point in time, nobody really knows where the placement of the turbines are.
We know the turbine locations, we just don't know which of the 89 will be selected for there to be 64 total. But in the report, the model that was done assumed all 89 locations had turbines, so it was a worst case model as far as shadow flicker. So there'll be less shadow flicker from 64 turbines that are actually built than the model, which had 89 turbines.
Non-participating people should not receive any shadow flicker so others can profit.
Thank you. I think we're going to take about a 5 or 10 minute break, 10-minute break. So we'll reconvene about 9:25.
Gary Tipsword.
Would you like to be sworn in?
Please.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you give in this case now and hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth? So help you God.
I do.
Would you state your name and address for the board?
My name is Gary Tipsword. Address 5500 North, 2375 East Road, Leroy, Illinois. GARY TIP, S as in Sam, ORD as in dog.
Could you repeat the address, please?
5500 North, 2375 East, Leroy.
Thank you.
I think you can go ahead.
Okay. So first, as a school superintendent, I would like to thank and applaud this committee for listening to the constituency, both good and bad, in support and not, but taking the time to invest in that I think is incredibly important. I think that's meaningful work, and I, as a school superintendent who believes that the constituency matters, listening to that I think is important. So thank you for doing that. The revenue aspect of Invenergy's proposal, the revenue aspect of wind energy for public schools is obvious, and to go into that, I think that's been stated. I think that's obvious. I think you've seen that over the years with all wind projects. The thing that I think is important, and I think the nuanced support that I want to bring and at least make the committee aware of, is because of the change in the systems of school funding and because of the nature of McLean County and school districts in McLean County. School districts in McLean County are predominantly Tier 2 school districts, which simply means this. You don't have to necessarily know what a Tier 2 district is, except for this fact. The state of Illinois at no time in the near future is going to come to the rescue of the public schools in McLean County. The support and the sustainability of our schools are going to be a function of the economic development and economic growth of this county. That's going to be critical to our success, both in the short term and likely in the long term, given the economic conditions of the state of Illinois. So the idea of expansion, diversity, and predictability of revenue is important, and that only happens through the expansion of property values. And so whatever that may be and whatever that may look like, and wind energy has been sustainable in McLean County. It's been something that's been positive. It's been something that has continued to evolve, continue to grow, and we have a history of it. We at least know it. That type of diversity in tax base for public schools, what it does effectively for us, when you can diversify the tax base, it allows us to flatten our variable rates and ease the burden on the people that own the black dirt and the people that own the homes. When we can see that kind of economic growth, that kind of economic development, it allows us to be better partners for our taxpayers in our county. So we think that's important. So we stand in support of economic growth, economic development, and the diversification of a tax base. So we see Invenergy and wind energy in general as a positive to that. But again, we do respect the fact that those impacted closest to home have a voice, and that voice has value. We continue to encourage you to listen to that as well. Thank you.
Questions on the board?
Does Leroy participate in revenue from other wind farms?
No, we have no wind turbines in our district, inside our district boundaries.
Okay, thank you.
Questions of staff? Would the applicants have any questions? Would anyone in the audience have questions? I think you got off easier than anybody.
Thank you.
Catherine Metzger.
You'd like to be sworn in, Catherine?
Sworn in, please.
You solemnly swear that the testimonies you give in this case now and hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God.
I do.
Would you state your name and address to the record?
Catherine, Catherine, Metzger, Metsker, 20645 North 825 East Road, Carlock, C-A-R-L-O-C-K, Illinois 61725.
You can go ahead, thanks.
As this board knows, I live in a project, a wind project that Invenergy developed and sold. We are now living with the results of that project. We have non-participating landowner, non-participating homeowners who have flicker that has never been addressed by Invenergy or the operating company following that. The only way that you can get any results is by suing those companies. So all of this wonderful work that is being done in advance to tell us that we don't have flicker and that these companies will take care of it when it's through is not correct. I have testified at every single one of these hearings, and nothing that this zoning board has ever done to protect the non-participating people, or even those who participate, has been taken care of. We need to have a long-term complaint line and guarantee that people can't walk away from their responsibility, and that our citizens do not have to sue to get something done. And that's the only way that things are going to get done, and we get tired. All of my neighbors are tired of this. All of my constituents in the brand new project that just went in, I can't tell you this past summer how many phone calls I got from the dust, from the construction company trucks that went on roads that were closed that weren't supposed to be. There is no tie between the road agreement for the township and the building permit. The only tie is, in order to get a building permit, they have to have agreements. No, we shouldn't be doing that. We need to, if these companies do not follow the township road agreements, their building permit is rescinded until they start following it. And if they don't follow it, they don't build. They don't continue. This has got to stop. This went on with the township that I lived in. It went on in the one around Lexington and Chenoa. Mr. Killian just told you what happened. I went out and talked to Invenergy's head of their project, and he said something would be taken care of the next day. It was not. There were, I think Mr. Killian said there were 3 trucks for 40 miles of road. It doesn't happen unless we are able to find them. Oh, and now he has to sue, has to have the townships have to have their attorney try to negotiate. Really? This is ridiculous. I have a constituent that Invenergy broke the tile line that went from his house out into the field, and it's never been repaired. So every time that we get heavy rain, dirt comes in to his basement. It's been going on for 7 years. And when he went and asked, when Mr. Dick asked him when he testified at the last time, Mr. Dick said, "Why didn't you try to do something, or who did you complain to?" He complained and nothing got done. Nothing, because these companies won't do anything. He would have to bring suit against them. So he has to tolerate mud coming into his basement because they broke his tile line that had been there for 100 years. The same thing happens with tile, as Mr. Peterson said. These companies are not going to fix it after they walk away. You have to sue them. We've got to stop. We've got to put protections in place. Mr. Peterson also had an excellent idea. We need to have Invenergy pay for a non-biased company or group to take a look at this flicker and also take a look at this noise studies to see if they are accurate. Maybe they are, but they haven't done a noise study after the fact. And the people that I just got complaints today about the noise from last weekend from Lexington. So what are we going to do? I think a noise study needs to be done, and I think the company needs to pay for it, but they don't get to decide who gets to do it. We need to decide who gets to do this. This is crazy. Mr. Peterson was absolutely correct. No other organization would believe the company that has a financial benefit. We need to have non-biased people review this information. The noise study, the flicker, and everything else. I understand that these wind companies are here to stay, but please, I have begged you 4 times, now I'm working on number 5, asking you to put some protections for our citizens. We have to have a phone line that people can call, that it's not just their county board member that goes out and then with the county chairperson and talks to the head of the construction, and nothing gets done. Went out there 4 or 5 times. I rode in a truck with Mr. Killian and with some of the other road commissioners to see the mess that was created because these people don't follow directions, don't follow the agreements that they agree to. It's all about the money, and I get it. But we are suffering and continue to suffer because of the decisions that this board makes, and they don't seem to understand. You might be in our corner, but you're not doing anything to help us.
Questions from the board?
This is Julia Turner. Ms. Metzger, who would man the phone line? Who would be responsible for the phone line that you're talking about? What's your thought there?
Why would the company not hire an external company? There are all kinds of call centers that take this work on. And this $1 million company on Wacker Drive certainly could pay for it. And I think we need to have some tighten it up, that they have to have a turnaround within a 24-hour period. When you call, you get a response within 24 hours. We need to set some standards, some service levels, and hold them to that. And if they don't meet it, we need to stop all construction. Stop it. Because if we don't do this, this is going to continue. And we need strong service levels that we hold these people to, and penalties that apply to them, that we don't have to sue to get our money. We don't want their money. We want them to do it right the first time. They wouldn't owe Chenoa Township $150,000 if they would have been following the agreement in the first place.
Thank you. I asked about the phone line. Thank you.
And I answered the phone line, but there's more than just that.
Any questions? No? You realize we just make recommendations. County board approves.
And they try to approve what you recommend. So
Not
please
always.
recommend stuff that holds people tight.
Staff have questions? Applicants? Would anyone in the audience have questions? I think you're free, Catherine. Thanks for coming up.
Anna Ziegler.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony is given in this case now in hearing will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
I do. My name's Anna Ziegler, Ziegler. Address is 2242 Westgate Drive, Bloomington, Illinois. I'm here on behalf of McLean County Farm Bureau, which is a voluntary membership organization that represents farmers and farmland owners in McLean County. I did have some questions for Mr. Griffin, but was informed that I was not allowed to ask them because he was not he didn't present testimony, he was just a presenter. So I guess I'll ask them rhetorically and he can decide whether or not to answer them in rebuttal, or just kind of state them. So the suggested conditions in the staff report include that the company has to enter into a county road use agreement, and I don't believe that that has yet been agreed to. So I think it would be perhaps in the zoning board's best interest to find out more about what might be in that county road use agreement and even have the opportunity to review it before you make your decision. I also think that the township road use agreements have not yet been finalized. And again, I think it might be in the zoning board and the county's best interest to have the opportunity to know the status of those and potentially ask questions or review them if needed before you approve the permits for this project. It's also my understanding that Invenergy is the third owner of this project. And so just, again, they can address that in rebuttal if they want to, but I think that's an important item for information for the zoning board because these projects do change hands, and the company that's sitting before you today may not be the company that continues to be the owner of it in the future. In previous testimony, it was stated that the county will hold the funds for decommissioning. However, the AMA agreement says that the county will be the primary beneficiary with the landowners as secondary beneficiaries. And so one question for the company and for the zoning board to consider is whether there might be any issues with that. I know we have perhaps encountered some issues with that with previous wind companies being able to set up that type of account. And in previous testimony, it was also stated that the life of the turbines is estimated to be 30 years. But I would like to point out that the sample lease provided with the application is for a 20-year term with 3 10-year extensions. So the life of the project, and therefore theoretically the life of this special use permit, could theoretically be 50 years. So again, just pointing that out for your information, that this is a very long-term project, and the folks in this room, the people sitting here as the company, most of us probably won't be in the same position in 50 years. A lot of our land owners will have transitioned their land to the next generation. And so we want there to be strong protections in place if and when these turbines need to come down. And those terms are part of the decommissioning plan and agreement. And I'd just like to point out for a reminder to the board that those decommissioning provisions are governed by 4 layers of agreements and regulations. There's the AMA, which is an agreement between the company and the Illinois Department of Agriculture. There's the county zoning ordinance. And then there's this county special use permit, which is going through hearing right now. And you have the ability to add conditions to that that could also affect decommissioning, and in particular, the financial assurance that will be used to provide the money to take the turbines down if the company fails to meet their obligations. And then lastly, the 4th one is the lease agreement with the individual landowner. So with all that said, we would like to suggest that the county review and consider including similar language as previous permits regarding financial assurance for the decommissioning. And I'm referring in specifically to point number 4 in the staff report under section 8, called concluding opinion. The language there is more vague than has been used in previous special use permits. And one of the reasons I point this out is because the county is not party to the Ag Impact Mitigation Agreement. It's between the company and the Illinois Department of Agriculture, and so you might want to consult with the state's attorney's office about your ability to enforce that agreement if you don't include more specific language. That's all.
Questions from the board? Staff? The applicant? Anyone in the audience have questions? Thanks for coming up.
Hey,
What do you got?
hold on. Sorry, Jim, we're just, move through a little quickly. She put a lot out there. I had to review it a minute. Anna, you stated that we should see the township road use agreement and the county road use agreement before we approve this. In particular, what issues are you most concerned with that we need to see this, that we need to see it versus them doing it on their own and regulating that?
There were some issues identified in previous testimony from other folks. And so if the zoning board wants to consider adding any conditions to add more teeth and enforcement mechanisms, that might be a reason that you might want to consider taking a look at those agreements. You know, I'm just adding it, I'm just making a suggestion. I don't know that there's no requirement that you have to review them before you adopt the permit. I'm just making a suggestion.
Looks like that was the only question. I think you're okay. Thanks for coming up.
Yep.
Did anyone not get on the list tonight for testimony that wants to testify? If you do, come forward.
Thank you. I did submit an email twice. Bruce, IEHL, 700 East Park, Libertyville. It's number S-3, part of the address. And my comments are based on my review of the application.
Hang on just a second. I need to swear you in.
Pardon me?
I need to swear you in.
Oh, yes, thank you.
That thing's getting loud.
Mr.
Yes,
Ely, you can take your mask off to testify so that people
Yes.
can hear you better.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony to give in this case now and hearing be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and you got his name and address?
Could you repeat your address, please?
700 East Park Avenue, number S-3, Libertyville, Illinois.
You can go ahead.
You ready? Okay. And before granting a wind energy conversion monopoly to any company for Bellflower and West Townships, the McLean County Zoning Board can review the current proposal and compare it to new technology that could be more efficient with lower environmental impact and greater participation by willing landowners. The currently proposed project uses horizontal axis wind turbines, which are known to create air turbulence downstream. An alternative is vertical access wind turbines, VAWT is an acronym, with recently released studies adding counter-revolution grids of turbines for greater efficiency in generating electricity. The vertical axis wind turbine has an axis of rotation perpendicular to the ground. And continue with other thoughts, the effects of wind turbulence on soil erosion, air quality, evaporation rates from soil, moisture loss from soil, and groundwater recharge rates require review. Inspections by aircraft, including drones, may be frequent, resulting in additional traffic or noise. Exteriors of towers may be climbed by trespassers using suction cups and magnets. Visibility of the dark night sky, including near the horizon, is an area resource for astronomers, including amateurs, which will be disrupted by the towers near the horizon. Various experiments test effectiveness of special paints to reduce bird collisions. Electrical energy will be exported from the area without local access to charging stations for vehicle charging. If people have electric vehicles, why not charge them locally? And more time and study is required to develop a proposal that meets the longer-term needs of a broader base of landowners and citizens of the community. And if I have another few minutes, I am a landowner in Bellflower Township, small property. I've lived there, had the property for 40 plus years. Always been conscious of wind and the effects, blowing dust, blowing snow, and it is a great resource. But the current technology is at least looks like 30 years old because some of these turbines are ready to come down. But recent studies, scientific journals show that there may be an alternative, and the zoning board can review that along with some of the other questions before they make their decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Eel, I'm sorry, I had your name down and I looked at the wrong list here, but he had called to give testimony.
Questions on the board? I'm going to give Julia a little time.
I'm good.
Staff? Applicant? Anyone in the audience have questions? The audience is getting smaller all the time, so thank you for coming up. Anyone else that wanted to give testimony tonight on this case?
Tim Jolly.
Okay. I'm going to swear you in if that's all right.
Sure.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you give in this case now and hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tim Jolly, you got to say your address again.
Okay, Route 1, Chenal, 2700 North Road.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be able to speak. I'm going to go through all these notes that I have in front of me, but this has been a very informative meeting. I appreciate the time of everybody put in. I can speak from my experience from up here in the middle of an EDPR project and the Invenergy project, and it's been a long road. I've been involved with the hearings that were down there starting in 2016 on, and it's nothing what I anticipated to happen. The things that catch me the most are just the absolute waste of money. Money and resources from our entire area here, let alone worldwide and environmentally. From when it started, the projects around here, they ground up the roads, they put down a base and EDPR watered the roads and put up these monsters about 2,000 feet away from my house is the closest. I have 6 of them within our mile of our house. After that, Invenergy comes in and they did a project that I think was around 100 windmills that went closer to Lexington, but they're within eyesight. And also, I am a mail carrier in the area, and I've driven on gravel roads now for 3 years. I've tore up 3 mail cars within those 3 years. I'm a non-participant in the projects. And the county roads even got tore up so bad that I've talked to Mr. Stokes on the county highway commissioner, and they were tore up so bad that it tore my car up, and they agreed to fix my car. But that's just me. What I'm concerned about are all these other people that are non-participants that are getting their equipment and things that are tore up, and they get absolutely no compensation. People sign up for the projects that come in, and they get a lot of money. But the companies that come in here and give out the money even get more money. And it's all because we're paying for it as taxpayers. And we see absolutely no results from complaints to the companies, which leads me to complaints to Mr. Dick, which I still see no results from watering of the roads. I've asked that the whole roads be watered, and all they water are the roads right in front of the people's house. But people have to travel those roads the entire width, the entire area that they have to go to their houses. So I've tore up 3 cars, and I'm sending the county the bill. I'm tired of it. It shouldn't be done. It's not a good project. The part of testimony that wasn't put out is that these things are 30% efficient. I admire the last person that just come on with alternative areas, that there's areas that you can come up with renewable energy. This entirely ruined our landscape out here. And I can't believe that you want to try to save the climate, but yet you ruin our environment. These companies are all for the money. They don't care about us. The state of Illinois is not for the people. They're all for the money. What is the county doing with this additional money that they're getting from these tax revenues? All they want to do is spend more. I'd like to see the county, I'd like to see it even down to the cities, start spending their money the way they do at home. Nobody knows how to do that anymore. And we're the results of what we're seeing. We don't have any compassion for the people out here that are non-participants. There's nothing that stops these companies from walking all over us. The sound studies, let's go through some of the points. The sound studies, they're irrelevant because they will not provide real data. And these Blooming Grove or whatever is down by Bloomington from Downs to Gibson City's been in existence for a long time. but yet they will not provide us with the numbers that come out of those projects. The one that's around us has been in existence for 2 years. I've been asking for a sound study outside of my house to be done, and I can't get any results. They want to do their sound studies in April and May, and they say that that's the best time of year to do it. They're wrong. February was absolutely unbearable with the sound that come off of these things. The ground is froze. There's nothing on the landscape. But yet when you get the right wind speeds or whatever it takes, they're absolutely unbearable. We had to actually leave our house and go down to another residence to get away from it. I've been woke up on Thanksgiving of last year, 2 o'clock in the morning, could not sleep because I thought that somebody with a diesel engine was sitting outside my house running. It's horrible. You can't even put any kind of description to what it is to live around these things. And that you, the zoning board, move the windmill from 1,650 feet from behind my house to 2,000 feet. I did not ask you to, but you did it for me and another resident not too far from me, even though I didn't ask it. And it doesn't help. These things are horrible. I hear them 3 or 4 windmills away, all through the day, all through the night. When the wind's blowing at the right side and at the right velocity, I will hear it. But I'm losing sleep. It's not good for the environment. There's other alternatives that are a lot better. These big companies want their big money, that's fine. These landowners want their money, that's fine. But what do we as non-participants get funded for? Nothing. There has to be something in the ordinance or however you handle this to put teeth in it to shut them down if they don't comply. That's what it boils down to. Who's going to stand up for the people of this county? Not Invenergy, not EDP. So you're the people that we're relying on. I'm not only representing me sitting here in the middle of 6 windmills within a mile of me, but they're already looking at putting in a phase 2 for EDPR, which will encompass another farm of mine, which I could move to. But if they encompass that, what good's that gonna do? So you just let them expand. You just let them keep tromping all over us. But there's better ways to handle this for the county and income. Learn how to spend the money. Learn how to get the people that are actually supporting you and just bring this to something that's going to work for everybody, but not the big companies that come in here and just reap the benefits. All I ask is your compassion to try to look out for us, the people that I just love this county. I love the landscape. I love where we are. But where we live has been totally ruined off to the south and to the west and to the east and to the north. Because all we see is windmills now. And that's all I'm saying.
Any questions from Mr. Jolly?
Yeah, Brian Banger. Tim, have you called the number that's supposed to be available in the event that there's major noise disruption on your property to have, analysis done? Have they paused the windmills to give you a break, or has there been any reparations in any way for you in your communications with them?
I'm glad you asked that, Brian, because I've talked to Invenergy. I've tried to get, not Invenergy, but a EDPR, because that's one that's around me mostly. But I have talked to Phil Dick himself and have demanded to have a sound study done out here on this farm somewhere. And there's other people in the area that have been approached, but I have not been contacted by the companies. So I have talked to the companies about all the situations and all the dust problems. I've talked to them, I get no results, and I call in to Phil Dick and I asked him to do something about it. And I actually asked a water truck driver why he isn't watering the entire road. And he told me because he was told not to. So where do you go?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Any other questions? Staff? The applicant? Anyone in the audience?
Do you mean someone else who would like to speak?
Hang on just a minute. We're getting kind of late, but we're willing to take your testimony.
No,
if you can hold within 5 minutes, it'd work out for us.
Actually, if you're going to continue to take some comments next time, I would happily wait. I wasn't anticipating talking tonight. I just don't want to miss the opportunity. And what I have to say will probably take more than 5 minutes.
Well, that's actually our rules, but we haven't really been holding to it. What do you want to do? We would like to get this part of the hearing over with tonight, and then we'll move on to rebuttal tomorrow night. So if you could do it in 5 minutes, we'd like to do that.
Whoa, okay. Carolyn Taylor, you want my address again?
Yes, I'll have to swear you in too.
Okay, right.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you should give in this case now and hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
And state your name and address, please.
Carolyn Taylor, 2111 Shields Avenue, Eugene, Oregon.
Thank you. You go ahead.
Okay. Just so you don't think I'm a total carpetbagger being from Oregon, I'm a great granddaughter of Simeon Henry West that West Township is named after, and it's in my blood, the farming in McLean County. And that's the point of view that I want to address here, is the standpoint that McLean County is perhaps the richest farmland in all of the country. My great-grandfather and his father, moving here from Kentucky in the mid-1800s, recognized McLean County as amazing. And there wouldn't be richness to any resources within the county if it weren't for the farming. And I'm concerned. I believe in wind energy. I think it is a great way to go. And in deserts and in places where it doesn't impact livelihoods and homes, I'm all for it. When I first started getting approached by Geronimo and then all of the others about my two farms, one in Bellflower and one in West, I just immediately thought, windmills on a farm? To my mind, I just knew instinctively that this was a can of worms for farmers. I'd like to focus in, just to make sure I get to it, on something that I wanted to ask the shadow flicker woman. I thought she was coming back tonight. Then I couldn't get on for the first half hour, so I don't know if she spoke again or not. But her use of the term receptor, and she defined it last time only to mean homes that people are living in. And the more I thought about it afterwards, I think the board needs to consider that another receptor that is going to be really inflected by shadow flicker are farmers when they're in their combines and their planters, and they're out there in the fields from before dawn until midnight planting, and the sun can be up and they'll be at the extreme worst angle, and they're going to have shadow flicker impacting them inside the glass cabs of their combines and their planters and everything else. And all of their planting and harvesting procedures can be impacted by shadow flicker, making them hard, maybe making it hard for them to see what they're doing as they're trying to get down rows of corn and beans. And I think that that hasn't been raised, and that has to, I raised this issue with Greg Vanderkamp, and I know he said, well, we can't pinpoint where farmers are at every moment. Well, of course you can't. But one thought that occurred to me after I talked to him was, you know, at the very least, if you're going through with this, can't there be mandates that somebody research and manufacture, for example, window screen filters to put inside combines or planters to screen out shadow flicker? I don't know if such a thing is possible, but something to protect farmers, because I think the biggest risk of this project is that the richness of the farming life of the county, yes, you have a few relatively new projects, but over the long haul, I feel like I'm Simeon Henry West's legacy fighting for the sanctity of the land, and that the land is not getting its due deference here in consideration for, I totally understand the financial things. I think that the superintendent's point, my dad grew up in Leroy and in that district. I think the superintendent's point, I mean, I'm a teacher and a therapist, and I think that schools everywhere need greater funding. But why? I mean, can't there be a search for a funding that it improves the lot of the schools, that doesn't impinge on farmers' lives and make farmers potentially pay the price, as well as all of the homeowners there, including those who live in the homes on my farms, including my cousins who are also descendants of Simeon Henry West that are farming there. That's one of my issues. Like Mr. Peterson, I have invested hundreds of thousands of dollars of tile in the land there over the years. And one example for us as non-participants is that we have one of our farms has a drainage that runs from our farm through in section 19 and 18 and 19, runs through section I'm mixing up townships, that runs through, section, in section 23 of West Township, that then runs through section 14 on its way to Salt Creek. And there's a turbine scheduled for 14. And if the turbine, you know, Mr. Vanderkamp explained to me that there are these backups and that they repair tiles and all of this, but if something happens there, it's not, and water backs up into our farm because it can't make its way through their farm all the way to Salt Creek. And then we have flooding. And again, in keeping with comments that have been made already tonight, you know, down the road, the flooding may not be visible by the time you realize the crops have been damaged, and yet the flooding has happened. Are there going to be lawsuits to have to prove that the flooding was caused by the broken tile on a farm that's across the road and down the way for a turbine that isn't us? There are all these issues that I find concerning, and I hope that I think that the point was well made that the board should get whether whoever pays for it, but a very independent set of people to back up these flicker studies and the noise studies that have been talked about. I'm concerned for farmers and the land and the homeowners here. So those are my main points. I had a bunch of questions. By the way, I sent Phil, Dick, and Daryl a copy of an article that I found. Actually, my husband found it. 5
We
questions
need to be
to
kind
ask.
of wrapping up. We're past the 5 minutes, so if you could do
5
that for us.
5 questions to ask before signing a wind energy lease. I sent an annotated copy and an unannotated to Phil and Daryl. If you could ask them, I think all the questions in there by a very wise person are ones for you to reflect on. So the fact that I don't have more time, I'll end with that.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Staff? Applicant? Thank you very much. I think we're at the point, we come back tomorrow night, you'll be at rebuttal.
That sounds correct, yes.
Okay, we're gonna recess and reconvene tomorrow night at June 9th at 7 o'clock in this room. 8 o'clock? Oh yeah, we have another meeting in here. So it'll be 8 o'clock tomorrow night. 8 o'clock. Yeah. We might get in early, but doubt it. Thanks for coming.
It's a
Thank you.
tough board.
Thanks.
Board is meeting in